G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of SuperCoach Edge. Well, we've seen our very first match sim, which was between Richmond and Melbourne, and I thought I'd jump on and give a little bit of a quick rundown, key takeaways of the most notable SuperCoach players. Of course, must say from the outset, if you haven't seen our previous episode, you probably don't know, but Liam did get married on the weekend to his long-term partner in Jacqueline, and was absolutely fantastic to be there and celebrate with him and the family. And we can now officially call ourselves brother-in-laws. So good to see him celebrate in style, and he's earned himself a well-earned rest. So I thought I'd jump on and nonetheless give a little bit of a rundown on my thoughts from the first match sim. Well, there we go. I just thought I'd whack up on screen there a nice little photo of the pink sweaty pig himself in Clary Oliver, who of course made his return, albeit in the, the twos side for the Ds, because in this game, the first four quarters were what they're calling the players that are going to be probables, that are going to be in the best 22 for both teams. And then they played an extra three portions, I guess you'd call it, so 7 in total. But those 3 portions, or whatever you want to call it, they were with virtually the seconds across both teams. So it was good to see Clary back out on field, wiggling his little curly tail and doing his thing, and actually looked pretty good, albeit again against the reserves. So I'll just scroll down here. This is through codesports.com.au, of course, and just so you can have some numbers up on screen whilst I talk through things. As you can see here, this is a breakdown in terms of the CBAs across the game for both the Ds and the TIGs, and I've taken a few notes just off screen here, which I'll be referring to, which we have posted in our Facebook page, so check that out if you wanted to sort of sit back and digest them at your own pace. But of course, as I said, the first 4 quarters, they were traditional, quarters played by the best 22, as it were, best 23 for both teams. So we'll work our way down the list in terms of price tag, and first up we'll chat about Petracca, and he finished with 25 disposals, 4 marks, 2 goals, and 87 fantasy points from, as you can see here, 16 CBAs. So 47.1% of CBAs for the entire, game, but he was he was predominantly in the midfield, did push forward a little bit, but yeah, he was just an absolute bull, as we all know him, doing his usual thing, bulking tackles, throwing his weight around, and just an absolute contested beast, and must say that he absolutely dominated. So he kicked a ripping goal tight on the boundary early in quarter 1, and then butted up shortly after with a long bomb outside 50. I think it was Windsor. He had a nice little rundown tackle, earned himself a free kick, handball to Track, who ran and kicked it outside 50 and just absolutely nailed it. So he did look absolutely fantastic, Track. But again, preface this by saying that he did have a little bit of extra freedom without Oliver being there, playing in the first team. But yeah, I think aside from that, he had the freedom to move, roam around, and do his thing. So he did catch the eye, and no surprise there. Moving on to Maxi Gawn, of course, he's priced at 583.7k. He finished with 12 disposals, 20 hitouts, 5 tackles, and 1 goal for 76 fantasy points. And as you can see there, had the 15 CBAs, 44.1%. And he only played the first half of the game, or the first 2 quarters of the game. So he, I think, did enough. Again, we all know what we get with Maxi Gawn, an absolute machine. But I must say that in terms of what caught my eye, as you would have heard, some of you, I imagine, but if you haven't, the AFL have sort of reintroduced the old rule of, you're able to sort of guard your space. If the ball has been thrown up or bounced and it's sort of landing where you are well within your rights to put your hand out, guard the space, and take the hit out, take the ball, whatever you want. And saw that in full display in this game. Kind of roughed up, you could probably say, Samson Ryan, who did take a fair bit of the centre bounce ruck attendances. So smaller, slender size compared to Gawny. He just threw his weight around, did Gawn, and just smashed it. So in half a game to 76 fantasy points, you'd imagine equating to SuperCoach points, equivalent, probably a little bit more, given hit-outs to advantage and whatnot. So may have scored upwards of 90 plus in half a game, which is absolutely crazy. So again, if you are in the small percentage that don't yet own Gawn, do yourself a favour, get him in your team, and go back and have a look at Liam and I's episode on Ruckman and why we think Gawn is such a value pick for 2024. Underpriced, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Jump on him. So he was really good as well. Must admit that Naismith, he was sort of the backup ruckman, as you can see there. He had 19 CBAs, 55.9%, and actually held his own, I must admit, against Gawny. I don't have a full breakdown of stats for Naismith, but he did look quite well. Super fit, as we know, he's copped 4 or so ACLs across the journey. So good to see him at full fitness. And must admit, if Nank the Tank does go down with injury, I'd be very, very happy, especially if I was a Tigers man, to see Naismith jump into his shoes because, as I said, held his own, looked really good. So he's someone that I'm keeping a close eye on and might even consider him as my R3 bench spot. I think he's 123 K or thereabouts. So it would be a nice sort of cheaper option compared to a Jordan Sweet, who, as we know for Port Adelaide, might have to bide his time in the reserves because of Ivan Solo taking the number 1 mantle there at Port. So would like a cheaper option. If it's not Naismith, potentially Freddie Kruger, as it was at Collingwood, also looked pretty good in the Pies intra-club. But that aside, before we go off on a tangent, let's roll through to the next player. Again, in order of the price tag, Jaden Short for the Tigs, defender, 551.2k. Ended up finishing with 22 disposals, 3 marks, and kicked a nice sort of regulation goal for him. Again, sort of similar to track. Handball, running sort of inside 50, kicked a nice goal, did Jaden Short. But I think, from what I saw, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this could be the old Jaden Short of old that we know. Racks up the pill at will across halfback, pushes forward, up towards the wing. As I said, getting handball receives, kicking goals as well when the play has stopped. So I am very, very pleased with what I saw from Jaden Short. Don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't think I'll be starting with him, but from what we've seen so far, this could be the second coming, third coming, maybe, of Jaden Short. So really did like what I see. The usual silky footwork, and is definitely one to watch closely. Shai Bolton, he was arguably probably best on ground. Ended up kicking 4 goals from 21 disposals, 4 marks, and finished with 92 fantasy points and had 13 CBAs, of course priced at 540.7k. It's been spoken about quite notably that Bolton is going to be playing a majority of his time up forward as a dedicated small, to mid-sized forward. And from what we saw, kicking the 4 goals, whilst he did look pretty flashy, mercurial, I guess you could probably label him as, he's the sort of player that can go missing at various stages. And if he's going to be playing majority of time in the forward line, he's going to be relying upon, kicking those bags of goals from week to week in order to, I guess, provide a stable Supercoach average. So again, even though I liked what I saw, as I said, best on ground, potentially, I don't think he's a viable selection in terms of a consistent scoring base from week to week. But, I mean, as we know on the forward line, there aren't too many options. So if you want to take a flyer, potentially you could, but again, not for me. But let's move on to the next player, and it is Thompson Dow. He's priced at 254.8k. A lot of people are getting caught up in the stats, I think, here. He did end up having quite a few CBAs, which you'll be able to see here. 24 CBAs, which was 70.6% CBAs, 2 clearances, finished with 24 disposals, 3 marks, and 64 fantasy points, which, even though, you're probably not a fantasy player for some of you tuning in, 24 disposals for only 64 fantasy points tells the tale, which is probably the fact that he had quite a few handballs amongst those 24 disposals, which, again, when you're equating that to Supercoach points, it doesn't provide much of a viable high floor, and you want to be, kicking more often than not. And I think the really key problem with Dow is, first and foremost, he was playing in this game ahead of the likes of, guys that were being rested in Dusty, Taranto, Prestia, even Baker, who could potentially move into the midfield in 2024. So when these guys return, I think Thompson Dow is going to be potentially out of the side, or at the, I guess the most will be potentially a sub. Some people are getting carried away with the stats and saying that, yes, even though he did look good in patches, again, too handball happy. And for me, he's very, very similar to his brother in that he struggles to pinpoint passes when he's under pressure and hence kind of handballs more often than not. Otherwise, he does opt to really just sky the ball and just kick it straight into the air, which really isn't to the benefit of his team. So for me, he's not an option, unfortunately, especially at that higher price point, 254.8k. But I guess nonetheless one to watch. But I'd like to see him play with a full midfield in Dusty, Taranto, Prestia, Baker, all being in the side and seeing how many CBAs you get, because I can guarantee he's not going to be getting anywhere near 24 CBAs and probably not even half that. So I think at most will probably be a bit of a rotating midfielder at best to really, I guess give a bit of relief to those first choice engine room players. But let's move on to Jack Billings. And he did impress. Forward player, of course, priced at 243.9k. Only had I don't know if they listed them here, yes they have, 2 CBAs, which, I mean, it would be great to see him in the engine room, but I think from what the Ds have said thus far, it's probably no surprise that he only got sputterings of time in the midfield, because they're going to be using him as a high half forward, which is what they did in this game. Ended up finishing with, though, 21 disposals, 7 marks, 2 tackles, and 81 fantasy points. So used as a high half forward, and did look to be the option that was sort of drifting up to the wing for transition play. A couple of nice penetrative kicks also in the inside 50. And for me, I think he just passed the eye test. Would be super happy with him scoring upwards of 80 plus in SuperCoach, and would make us bulk points, I think at least 200k if he was to average that. So that would be absolutely fantastic. And he's my side at the moment and probably will stay there. But we will see how he performs in the official preseason game, of course. But for me, I did like what I saw. Moving on to the next player, and it is Caleb Windsor, mid-forward, priced at 180.3k. He's another guy I think that probably jumped off the page. We all sort of have heard across the preseason how much the Ds rate him, and really to see it for the first time, I think for me anyway, in full effect, I now understand why. Finished with 22 disposals, 3 marks, 80 fantasy points, and was an absolute gun. Played on the wing, really, predominantly across the first 2 quarters, and then was shifted back to sort of play more of a high half-back type role. Smooth mover, and as I said, looks like the Ds enjoy the ball in his hands and totally understand why. And I think from what I saw, I think a round 1 debut does loom. Despite the fact that he is high priced at 180.3k, I think he should be in most teams. Adding on to the fact that he is a DPP player as a mid-forward, that's just the cherry on top. So looking forward to seeing him potentially make his debut, but I do like the look of him. I will preface it by saying that yes, he did turn the ball over a couple of times, did get caught holding the ball a couple of times as well, but he will adjust to the pace of the game. Keep in mind that it's his first year at senior level. Will take some time to adjust, as it does for most players that are making their first year debut. So yeah, aside from all that, I think he will provide a nice score from week to week. Will of course fluctuate, but I think he will provide us with nice cover and also provide us with a nice little cash cow option. Let's move on to Josh Gibcus, defender, priced at 150.7k. It didn't take long to get into the game because he did actually take the first intercept mark of the game and looked at home. Played more of a lockdown defender as opposed to more of a roaming defender. But I think for me, at that price, he's a cash cow lock. Best 22 week after week for the Tigs, and like what I saw there. Good to see him fit after not playing a game in 2023. Let's move on to the next one in Bailey Laurie, forward, priced at 125.2k. He was a little bit surprising, I think, biding his time in the VFL. Even though I liked what I saw, he finished with 22 disposals, 6 marks, 77 fantasy points, and I think he just had the two CBAs. So played more as a, high half forward again in the forward line. Was lively and did some very nice things I saw. But I think just remains to be seen if he can get a full-time crack, if he is best 22 or best 23. And I think he probably is best 23, which he may loom as a sub-candidate, which I think he was in previous games that he has played. So, yeah, I mean, keep an eye on him, but I wouldn't be too bullish with him at that price point, albeit he did look pretty good. The other guy who looked really good, which I think I am maybe considering making a spot in my team for him because I was that impressed by him. And it is the guy which has a really unique first name for the Tigs in Steely Green. I don't know if his folks are fans of the band Steely Dan, maybe, but Steely Green, forward, priced at 123.9, kicked 2 goals, and he well and truly caught the eye. Fancy footwork, evasiveness as a small forward, and could really prove a handful, I think, if he does get a crack. And I think he's probably due off the back of, played a full apprenticeship in the VFL and an absolute eye-catching performance there against the Ds. And I think there's a role for him as well, small forward, especially if Baker moves into the midfield. I'd very much like to see him make his debut because from what I saw, I think he belongs at senior level. So I am very much considering bringing him into my team. And he's a sort of player as well, Steely Green. You can't say his name without saying the full Steely Green, the first and last name. Incredible. But let's round things out with another guy I think that's probably most Supercoach relevant in Keenan Brown. Midfielder forward, bottom price at 102.4k. Ended up kicking 2 goals. And his first was an absolute cracker off his left, tight in the pocket in the early minutes of the game. And I think it could be potentially a smoky if one of the D small forwards go down. Don't think you'll get a crack come round 1, but as a potential downgrade option during the season, could be a nice little juicy option down the line. So like what I saw. Let's finish things off with another guy who I didn't really take too many notes on because he played only the 1 quarter, if that, for the Tigs. Kane McAuliffe, only 3 CBAs. Did a nice little rundown tackle from memory on, I think it was Petracca. Looked pretty good, but I mean, 1 quarter of a game, it's not much to go off. So off the back of that, I think he's probably, you could say, down the pecking order for the Tigs, and mightn't make his debut in round 1, but very much like Keenan Brown, could be an option in season, sort of mid-year or thereabouts. We'll touch on Clary. Of course, as I said, he played in the last 3, I don't know if you want to call them quarters, portions, whatever. Yes, he actually scored, what I think anyway, quite well. Let's see if they got the numbers here, because I think he ended up having 19 disposals or thereabouts. But I did see stats. I think he had about 19 disposals across the 3 portions or whatever it was. And yeah, it did look pretty good. Kicked a ripping goal, very much like Track and Brown from the pocket. It was that sort of game, I think, kicking, and it was from the same end of the ground as well. Kicked a cracking goal, tightened the boundary, but looked pretty good, back to his best. I think he kind of needs to build up his fitness, and that's probably part of the reason why the Ds only played him in the reserves team against the reserve side for Richmond. But yeah, he looked pretty good. Did go down, copped a bit of a hit, and was only winded, so thankfully it was all good. But I think once he builds back his fitness, he's definitely an option. But for me, I don't think he's on the radar at the moment, just coming from too far back, especially with the injury that he had last year as well. A couple of injuries. I'd like to see him at full fitness and would be prepared to pay a bit of extra for him if need be in season. I do think potentially he could drop in price, especially if they want to try and manage his workload. If he does play in round 0, and he doesn't play the full allocation of CBAs and minutes and whatnot. So all that aside, did like what I saw, but again, coming from a little ways back. So yeah, be good to see him back at full flight. Do love him, the pink sweaty pig, as we all do, of course. So that's pretty much it. That wraps us up for this chat about the first match sim that we've been treated to. The next match sim I think is tomorrow, as I record this Wednesday. It's Collingwood versus North potentially, which is going to be interesting. But of course, going to be keeping our most eyes on Finn McRae, of course, and then for the Roos, we've got McKercher, we've got Wardlaw, LDU, and the like. So will be good to see. So I'll be tuning into that, of course. Anyway, ladies and gents, let's leave it there. If you have any questions, let us know in the comment section below here on YouTube, and stay tuned as well, because Liam and I will be reconvening over the coming days, where we will be doing our individual as well, team reveal or team updates in my case, and it has absolutely changed. Strategy's changed and a lot, so you'd want to tune into that. And Liam, of course, revealing his team for the first time. I've had a little bit of a sneak peek Must admit, it differs from mine a bit, and I do like it, so stay tuned for that as well. But we will be coming at you with, again, more wraps about the match sims, and then, of course, heading into next week, we've got the official preseason games as well, which, of course, we'll be tuning into and doing more of a comprehensive look at each game. And then I think we might do another episode as well, where we will be chatting about those players that we did miss in our line-by-line breakdown of defenders, midfielders, forwards, and rucks, what we're calling the frequently asked players section. So look out for that. But until next time, ladies and gents, we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.